Welcome back to episode 9 of Brokers of Secrets. Now, a lot of you know that there are two realities, the binary and the quantum. And if you live in the binary reality, you're not free. No matter how free you think you are, you're not free because your mind is trapped inside of this confine that's invisible. If you're in the quantum world where you think quantum, because you actually live in a quantum world, right? If you think quantum, you actually have a mind that allows you to adjust and adapt to the reality that you actually can call home or reality, right? What I'm saying here is if you're in the binary camp, your mind is artificially restricted inside of a quantum reality. But if you actually are able to think in a quantum manner, you are actually able to experience reality itself with no boundaries of limitations. Now, if you are hearing me right now, you might be like, what the heck did you just say? The first thing is you need to be curious because what I'm about to share with you has to do with not only your freedom and your success, but your ability, listen carefully, your ability to influence your reality in less time with more ease and greater repeatability. This right here, ease and speed and repeatability, very, 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 very important. Most people live a life where they don't know how to predict their life. They have zero idea of what could happen tomorrow or next month or next year. Most people, as confident and successful as many people are in this world. Yeah. And I'm talking about the 1%, not to even touch on the 99%. They have no idea oftentimes, unfortunately, right? They don't even know because they have no idea they're in the binary thinking. Now, I'm not saying just because you're rich and you're successful and you're in the 1%, you're not in the binary. Most of the people are also in binary thinking. So let me break down what binary thinking is and then what quantum thinking is. And then let's compare the benefits and let's help you see how you, as a magnificent human being, naturally belong in the quantum thinking. Naturally have the capability of doing quantum thinking, and that you, because you live in a reality that is quantum in nature. However, most people have been brought up in a society, in a school, in an environment where it's all binary thinking. And I don't mean like gender when I talk binary. What I'm talking about is right or wrong, black and white, right? This or that, right? And listen, this is a very important understanding. The binary thinking is that I can have this, but not that. Yeah. It's following these concepts all the way down the rabbit hole. You'll realize that these rules are set to manage the population. Yeah. Why not, right? Because the world at one point was quite difficult to manage. And I'm not saying it is now. What I am saying is if I was in charge and I want to manage the population, setting up these boundaries allows me to manage the population better. Yet, as we step into the next phase of human evolution, where AI, quantum computing, and more, and robotics are all coming into play, if humans continue to think binarily, you're going to have problems. You can't just live the old peaceful life of, I can just go work a job and do X, Y, Z, or run my company and live this normal life. No, robot, AI, and quantum computing at some point in your life will take over these jobs, and people, it's not really the technology, it's the people who know how to use it. And the people who know how to use it, who are they? They're the ones with quantum thinking. So really, the binary thinkers and the quantum thinkers are going to experience this far greater disparity in wealth and access and freedom as this unfolds, far more than ever in history. You think it's bad now, right? Whatever bad means, this disparity, it's going to be far greater. Those who understand not only how to leverage AI and quantum computing and all of the technology, all of the advancements that we have been experiencing. Not only that, you can't leverage these technology if you don't think in a quantum manner. So let me explain what the difference is between quantum and binary. Yeah. Binary is there's always a right way and a wrong way. There's always good and evil. That the person naturally throws everyone into these camps for easy generalization. This is called being lazy in the mind. And that's normal actually for the population, because if it's easy, right? It's safe, it's convenient. And when they go to school, right, most people that went through school, they're taught good and bad. Yeah. When you're a kid, you were taught you're being a good boy, good girl, or bad boy, bad girl, whatever the behavior is. You were conditioned your whole life to identify with this or that. Even when it comes to sports, it's this team or that team, two teams. When you become an adult, you have been conditioned to think this or that, this or that. It's not this and that. This and that becomes quantum. Think about it. If you're a CEO or a director or an executive of a company and you have two employees arguing, do you always have to say it's that person or that person that's right? Because for a binary thinker, they're going to say that person's right, that person's wrong. Yeah. Same thing when it comes to parenting. This kid's wrong, this kid's right. Same thing when it comes to a lot of decisions in life. A lot of decisions in life. And as you think about how, some people will say, I can either have success in making money or I can have success in my relationships. Now, they're not going to logically tell you that, but when you have a deep conversation, maybe over dinner with a friend who's single or have been divorced a few times, they will tell you in between their sentences, their language, their stories, they'll tell you how this world, is the way it is, and that these are the rules and these are the binaries. It's either this or that. You will hear it. As you listen to this podcast, you will begin to hear it in your friend's language, your family's language. Yeah. I remember talking to my father one time. He was like, I didn't succeed with my business because I didn't have the education. And I said, Dad, you can still get the education. And on top of it, how do you know it's that education that will get you the success in the business? He said, it almost, he hit the boundary and he couldn't respond. And he just went back to the same loop. And he said, your grandfather and I, we didn't have the resources and we had to do this. We had to do this. We have to do this. We had to do that. It's the have to necessity mindset as well. And it was always within the confine of just one or two choices. So, that's why I had to do this. And because of that, I couldn't have the time or energy to create a business. And then when I did, I didn't have the knowledge. It was always within this lack of freedom of choice. And you may say this is called the victim mentality. And I'm going to just say it. 99% of the population, 99% of the population have at least some degrees, if not more of the population, have at least some degree of victim mentality. Look at the news. What is the media? Even if they weren't born with the victim mentality, if they watched the news enough, it was always this person did this to that person did this to that person. And most movie plots are this person did that to this person, therefore that person takes revenge on this person. It's just an endless amount of victimhood. And then they glorify it with the hero's journey. They make it look all fancy and nice. And so this person wins because they beat the enemies. The hero and the enemy, that is what we call binary thinking. Now let's switch over to quantum thinking. Quantum thinking. If you're the overlord, the emperor, the king, the queen, you may not care about the basic logistics of what's going on. You're wondering how it impacts the system as a whole. You are becoming the player of the game rather than the pieces on the chessboard. You begin to realize the heroes are there for you, while the hero thinks they're there for them to be the hero. Is this making sense? I hope this is making sense. The emperor, the queen, the king, they are thinking, I don't mind giving the credit to the heroes. They're at the front line. They're the ones making the sacrifices. They're the one that knows that it's the right thing to do to sacrifice for the empire. I'm going to reap the benefit. I'm going to reap the benefit, right? And the king could even put together the game that pits one team versus the other and say, hey, fight, and have people pour money and resources into betting on the game, watching the game, and the king wins. Because no matter which side, the king owns both sides. Now, I'm bringing this up, not because I'm asking you to be the king, the emperor, but I want you to take that mindset for a moment and wonder, what happens when everything we were taught about reality is not what it seems? If you were the rule maker, what would reality look like to you? And how would it look differently if you were to make new rules? And I want to ask you further. If you were to look at this situation where in the binary, people are saying A or B choice, as an emperor, what would you say the choices are? I think that if you pay attention right now, you'll get a lot out of this really easily. The emperor is going to think A and B. It could be any degree of A, any degree of B, but they can simultaneously be your choice. And then on top of it, there's the C that you haven't considered. That's also the choice. And then there's the D that hasn't been considered. That also is the choice. All of the above are choices that can be made. While the peasant, the hero, they're thinking A or B. That's it. That's it. No more. Over here, the emperor says there are all choices that we can make. A quantum thinker isn't just thinking right or wrong. It's saying, hey, this could be right and wrong at the same time. What else have I not considered? What we have observed over the last 10 years as we work with business leaders and people who are highly successful, what we have noticed is the more successful someone is, the more capable they are in thinking outside of the box. Now, you're all familiar with this concept. What's outside of the box? Well, that invisible box is the binary. It's the left or right, A or B, right or wrong. The outside of the box thinker is that we're looking at the box and looking outside. What is out there? What's out there, right? The more outside of the box someone can think, the more success we've seen that they were able to achieve. But there's a very specific set of things that we observed, one of which is they are a and thinker rather than an or thinker. Let me repeat this, because you're probably thinking, how do I apply this, William? Like, what the heck is a quantum thinker? How do I even apply it? I want you to start somewhere very simple. Instead of or, this or that, think this and that. Think this and that, and what is something I haven't considered? What is something I haven't considered is a crucial question to train your mind to become a quantum thinker. Because what is quantum? It's an and a various degree of and. It's A and B. It's negative A and positive B. It's, if you were to go and look up what quantum mathematics is, you'll get a lot of insight onto this. Yeah, we're not getting into that. My point here is very simple. Although this may be a little bit more difficult of an episode to understand, but it's not. It's actually easy if you take your time and do some research into quantum thinking, into quantum mechanics, into quantum mathematics. Don't go too complex. It's actually a lot simpler than you may think. You can even ask ChatGPT, explain this to me. Explain how I can apply quantum logic into my decision making. Explain how I can use quantum mathematics in making a choice between having more success in this business and leaving my job, or staying in my job and this. Your quantum thinking answer might come out to be do both. Or what's something else you haven't considered, right? Jokingly, Maybe it's neither. Maybe you shouldn't start this business. Maybe you shouldn't do this job. Maybe you should marry the CEO's daughter. I don't know. There could be any and all answers. Oftentimes, the quantum thinker is thinking, and who knows, you could start the business, stay in the job, and marry the CEO's daughter. You could do all of it, right? Or maybe it's that Friday night you should be going to a social event where you'll meet your future investor. And maybe it's that Saturday morning you need to go to this coffee shop and you're going to meet your next business partner. Maybe you need to be more intuitive and understand and aware that your mind's actually giving you a signal, but you've been too busy blocking the signal because you're thinking, should I leave the job and start the business, or should I stay in the job and stay stuck? That's what the binary thinker is going to think. But instead, the quantum thinker is like, I can do all of them. I'm going to do it in the most efficient, effective way. And I'm going to think, what's my biggest lever so I can leverage and create the outcome I want? So the takeaway, here's the takeaway. In all of the things I've said, it's actually simpler than most people think. To become a quantum thinker, it's not something that most people are used to because we've been conditioned and classically trained to think linear, think binary. In order to transition into thinking quantum, and this is probably one of the most important things that will give you freedom, because the freedom is hidden in plain sight. And actually, the opposite is true. This limitation, this so-called limitation, if you go to any seminar or personal development training, they say limitation, limiting belief. All of those things are actually binary constructs. The moment you step into quantum, the limitation disappears. So instead of telling you need to just keep solving these limitations, no, we need to actually think quantum and those limitations actually disappear. That's the trick. It needs to be a systemic upgrade, right? So here's how you apply it. This is the takeaway. The takeaway is you need to start designing your goals way farther out. 90 years, 100 years is the bare minimum. Some of our students go out to 1,000 years and beyond. Here's why. It's going to force you to think about things you haven't considered. And it's going to cause you to think differently. Instead of just short-term goals and short-term accomplishments, you're thinking, how can I create legacy level success and benefits to mankind, right? And then on top of it, set up reward structures for when you hit every one of these goals, as you call them, future memories, right? Set up reward structures. Some students of ours will ask us, hey, what if my goal alone is already very, rewarding? Should I have rewards? I'm like, yeah. How much reward can you stand, right? How much rewarding can you stand? How many rewards would you be willing to give yourself if there's no finite resources? See, the binary thinker is thinking there's a finite amount of time. By the way, time's made up anyway, right? It's an agreed upon concept, right? They also think there's a finite amount of money, finite amount of resources, finite amount of energy, finite amount of everything. But energy can't be destroyed, right? We can use it and transfer it. And there's always a flow. As you understand quantum thinking, there is no limit. The way to free your mind is you need to design way far out and a lot of rewards. These rewards will become your energy deposits, basically deposits of the future. It'll become something you can leverage to negotiate with your subconscious, which is the master of all your energy. And I'll put it in a different way. Your subconscious mind manages all of the energy and resources within you, and it allocates to different projects that are worthy of your attention and time. But the way it judges is based on your previous programming. Unless you're willing to say, hey, these new goals or new memories, right? If you listen to the last episode, you'll know what I mean. If you set these new goals and you have rewards that are so strong, sufficiently powerful to incentivize your unconscious, you will rewire how your mind perceives what's worth your time and energy. And therefore, it will cause your mind to reroute resources and or unlock new resources. So when people say, I just felt unlocked when I go through an upgrade training, I am totally, upgraded, right? They say, really a big part of it is that they are designing long-term goals and they're attaching rewards to them. And then we help them remove the obstacles and implement. We're sharing these secrets freely. because people hire us for implementation, right? So I want you to know it's about designing far, far out into the future goals with a lot of rewards. As you do that, you're going to open up quantum thinking. And remember, it's the and mindset and even the options you haven't considered, not the or mindset. Yeah. If you go for the and mindset and then design far out and with a lot of rewards, that's already many steps ahead of the rest of the population into quantum thinking. And lastly, quantum thinkers experience quantum leaps in not only progress and success and happiness. So we look forward to hearing from you, your success stories, and see you in the next episode.